Baby, I'm so excited. We got a park ranger coming on the show today.
I know, a national park ranger.
Yeah, we're going to go all the way down to Big Bend in Texas, and we've got park ranger Christy coming on the show to talk about all the different features in Big Bend.
I know, I'm excited about this because we've been there a couple times, so this is going to be fun.
So put your seatbelts on.
Because here we go.
This is RV Destinations Podcast.
All right, babe, I'm so excited today.
I'm so excited. I need some excitement. I'm feeling slightly under the weather. Like as the day goes on, I'm like, oh. So I'm putting on my big girl pants. I'm doing this.
We got to push through because we got another ranger on the show.
I'm so excited. We've got a national park ranger from Big Bend National Park.
Do you want to introduce her?
I do. We've got on the line with us Ranger Christy Negele. Hi, Christy. How are you?
I'm great. How are y'all doing today?
We're doing great. And you have a couple of friends there with you. Can you introduce them? Because they're super cute.
Sure. Yeah. So we have a collared lizard right here, closest to me. We do have them in the park, Western collared lizards. And then, of course, our big T-Rex, and he's representing the fossil history of Big Bend National Park.
That's cool. Because if you would have said, hey, by the way, we now have T-Rexes in the park, I'd be like, we're hanging up right now. We'll be down in, like a couple days.
That's great. That would be awesome.
That would be. Could you imagine?
I've got mixed feelings about the whole Jurassic Park movie. Part of me would be like, that'd be so cool, but
it would get messed up that bad. It would.
Humans would mess it up somehow.
Humans would totally mess it up. That's why we're not coexisting anymore.
Well, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to do this. And as I said, we're a podcast full of RVers, and we've got a lot of people that listen to the show, and so we try to inform them about different places all over the U.S. And Canada as well. But if you don't mind, why don't we start off telling us a little bit about your career with the National Park System?
Yeah, and how you got started. I love sharing this, especially because a lot of times it involves learning about the program as a kid. So I love hearing about this.
Sure. So I have worked for the Park Service for 19 years now.
Wow.
Saying that out loud is kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I first started in 2005 at actually Canyonlands National Park, which you mentioned that you have done a show on. So
Yeah, we did.
I would say, so I have now worked at 7 national parks, and Canyonlands and Big Bend are my favorites of the
Oh, wow.
Cool. Very cool.
And so you said how I got started. When I was in college, I did several internships and volunteer positions with the Park Service through Student Conservation Association. And we get asked all the time, how did you start with the Park Service? And I highly recommend SCA. But I started in Canyonlands and then was a seasonal for 5 years. So I moved every 6 months, which I'm sure you've heard before talking to other rangers that start out that way. And that's where I racked up quite a few parks. And then I was offered my first permanent position at Carlsbad Caverns National Park.
Oh, nice.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Very unique park. If you don't mind spending a lot of your day underground, it's fun. My parents were cavers when I was little, so for me,
oh my gosh, wow.
It was a dream. It was pretty cool. And then from there, went to the Grand Canyon, and I was there for 8 years. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I met my husband at Carlsbad Caverns.
Nice. In the cave?
Absolutely.
Now, was he
park ranger?
Okay? Because I was going to
gotcha.
say fellow park ranger, because we talked to another ranger in Bryce Canyon who met his wife, but she was a guest, and that's how they met, which I thought was super sweet.
Yes, absolutely. No, we did not have a lock eyes in the cave moment or anything like that. But yeah, so we moved to the Grand Canyon. We were there for 8 years, and then had a chance to come to Big Bend. And I'm from Texas originally. I grew up kind of near San Antonio. So it was a chance to come back closer to family and to a park that I had grown up visiting. So Big Bend is very special to me in that emotional way. We came here every year when I was growing up. So it's good to be back.
It's such a special park. And, Caly and I visited one time prior to COVID and then one time after COVID, and the amount of traffic is just unreal. I mean, it was so quiet, and we felt like we had the
whole park to
ourselves. And it was March the first time we were there.
Like March, April.
Yeah,
I think.
we it was probably 2018.
Earlier
18.
than that. Way earlier than that.
Whatever it was, we felt like we had the whole park to ourselves, and
because we had the little guy.
Yeah, we went. Okay, that was a long time.
It was like 2012 or 13.
When you get older, time just has no
We're
meaning.
like, it was 6 months ago.
But I remember we were sitting in the hot springs with nobody else.
There was that one guy.
Oh, the one other guy.
The one strange random guy that was hanging out there by himself.
He was all
and
creepy.
I'm like, let me just slide into the pool on the other side.
But we sat there for a couple hours with nobody else coming
Nobody
there.
else.
I mean, nobody else.
Nobody else. And then when we went back after COVID.
In 2020, was it 2020 or 2021?
It was 22. 22.
I can't remember anything.
It's okay, honey. It's okay. It was us and about 200 of our not so close friends.
People. Yeah, it was crazy.
At the hot springs. You know, it was just a big change.
Yeah, we talked to a ranger briefly, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I guess historically you've this was probably like June or July, but historically you get like 800,000. I'm using numbers that I remember, and this could be off, but he said that you had already received like 1.2 million visitors already.
So
it was just like June.
Yeah, how many visitors are you getting these days? Has it slowed down a little?
A little bit, but so for example, in 2019, which was my first year here, our visitation was about 450,000 people.
Wow.
And then in 2021, it jumped to almost 600,000. And so I think we're on track to get close to that again this year. But so far, 2021 was our busiest year.
Okay, wow. So my numbers are way off.
Yeah, it's close.
But I remember that in June they had already hit whatever month we were there. I thought it was June, but maybe it was a different month. But whatever month we were there, they had already hit what they normally got on average at that point. That's what the Rangers said.
Okay.
And again, the numbers my memory is not that great anymore, but
he can barely remember my name, so we're doing good right now.
All right. Well, we usually, and I'm going to call you Ranger Christy if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I just think that's a great.
Because if I had the opportunity to be called a ranger, I'd be like, yeah, it's Ranger Caly. It's not just Caly, Ranger Caly.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a list of what I call fun facts about the park. I'm going to read these, and if there's anything that's wrong or incorrect, please let us know. But more importantly, if you want to elaborate on some of them, I would love to hear that too. So the first thing I've got here is Big Bend is one of the largest national parks in the U.S. It spans over 800,000 acres, making it the 15th largest national park in the United States. To put that in perspective, it's larger than the state of Rhode Island.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah, it's huge.
I didn't realize that. Let's tell folks where it is in Texas. So it's down. So you got the first doopy in Texas. This is in the second doopy. It's in the shorter doopy of Texas.
It's on the Rio Grande. Rio Grande separates
on the Mexican border.
Mexico from Texas, and you're about 200 miles from any major city, something like that.
At a minimum. So Midland, Odessa, which is the closest airport, is a 3.5 hour drive for us.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a big commitment. People that go to Big Bend, you've got a long drive.
You're going to go.
Once you get off the freeway, it seems like it's forever
it's like
to get
4
down
more
there.
days.
Yeah, no, but it's amazing. So there's 3 ecosystems in the park. Big Bend is incredibly diverse with 3 distinct ecosystems. Is it the Chihuahuan Desert?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I'm pronouncing it right. Okay. The Chihuahuan Desert, Rocky Mountains, and the Rio Grande River. This diversity supports a wide range of wildlife and plant species, from cacti to desert shrubs to lush riparian areas and forested mountain slopes. Anything you want to add there? Is that all correct?
Sure. No, the only thing I would say is, and only because we're very proud of this, you mentioned Rocky Mountains, but so the Chisos Mountains are here within the park, and we are the only national park that has a mountain range entirely within the national park. So,
cool.
I did read that. And that's where your best campground is, honestly.
Yep.
We stayed there the first year. We had a
teardrop camper.
Now,
it's a wonder that we're still together after that teardrop camper experience in our life.
I don't know if you have any experience with RVing and all that, but you're basically pulling around a queen-size mattress, and that's it. And so it was very close quarters. Now, I'll tell the listeners out there. And
actually, because of Big Bend, we have the motorhome we have today, and I'm going to have to share that story.
Yeah, I was gonna get that to the people that are listening or watching on YouTube. You're not going to get your big rig up into the Chisos Mountains, into that campground. There's another campground that's a lot easier to get to that you can get your big rig. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. But Big Bend is also an international dark skies park. Big Bend was designated as an international dark sky park in 2012, making it one of the best places in the country for stargazing. On a clear night, you can see the Milky Way planets and thousands of stars with minimal light pollution.
Gazillions. It's not thousands. It's gazillions.
So my wife, I actually do a lot of star trail pictures. I'm a photographer, and so I was excited the first time we went down there because I knew it was actually one of the first dark sky parks, wasn't it? If I remember right.
Yeah, I honestly don't know where we are in that order, but yeah, fairly early on.
I thought because now it seems like almost all the national parks, especially out west, are dark sky. But I felt like Big Bend was one of the first ones, but maybe not. But my wife, Caly's never been to any place like that away from the cities, and so I took her, and we hadn't even got into the park yet. We were driving down whatever the road is close to it, and I said, "Watch this," and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I pulled off to the side. I made her get out of the car, and I shut off all the lights.
It was the creepiest thing. It was utter blackness. And then, it takes some time for your eyes to adjust. So at that point, I couldn't even see the stars, and I'm like, turn the lights on.
But after 2 or 3 minutes, you start seeing the stars. Yeah. It's just so incredible. If any of our listeners out there, and Christy, I know you've seen this before, probably thousands of times, but any of the listeners out there, if you've not done that, you've got to get to one of these dark sky spots.
It's incredible. I've never seen so many stars, and to see the Milky Way that vividly, you can get hints of it in other places, but it's like, oh, well, they're right there. There's the Milky Way. I mean, you can't miss it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Big Bend is a UNESCO International Biosphere Reserve. I'm not even sure what that is.
Mean?
Are you familiar with that?
So that's a pretty broad designation that I have seen in other parks. So, for example, working at Grand Canyon, I know they have that as well. But y'all are pulling out some good questions. I'm not sure exactly, who or how you qualify for that.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. It just reflects the park's outstanding natural environment and its significance for biodiversity. So it's very generic.
That is a pretty generic description. It's almost like it's describing itself within its title.
Yep. All right, that's right. It's a haven for birds. There's over 450 species of birds. Big Bend is a birdwatching paradise. It's one of the best places in the U.S. to spot rare species, including the Colima warbler.
Oh, honey, you're doing good.
Warbler. Colima.
Colima. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Colima warbler and the golden eagle and the peregrine falcon. The falcon.
Oh, the peregrine.
Yep. They're all down there. Over 450 different species. It's home to the Rio Grande River. The Rio Grande River.
I'll take a grande.
2 grandes to go. Vente, please. The Rio Grande River forms parts of the park's southern boundary and serves as a natural border between the U.S. and Mexico. The river is also a popular spot for kayaking and rafting and offering scenic views of the park from the water.
I feel like a lot of your little fun facts are digging into the top 10 things we're going to be talking about. So you need to lessen how much you're talking.
All right. Big Bend, the name comes from the river curve. It curves right down there through the distinct horseshoe shape as it flows through the park. And that I could stop there.
Yeah, because I saw.
She gets mad at me because I cut into her information.
He takes my glory.
Let's see. It's named after the Chisos Mountains. The Chisos Mountain, as you said, is the only mountain range that's entirely contained in one.
You can read
national park, and Chisos comes from the Chisos Indians who once inhabited the region.
Read number 15. That's interesting.
Big Bend is one of the most remote national parks in the lower 48. It's about 200 miles from the nearest major town, which is Alpine, Texas, and has limited cell phone reception, making it a haven for those seeking solitude and escape from modern distractions.
Yes, and it was so true. And that's one of the things that I loved about Big Bend is when you're down there, you are down there and just away from everyone and everything. Well, except for the, several 100,000 people that visit the park.
Right.
But it was just, it's such a beautiful and special park. It's very different than a lot of the other national parks, which is why I think I like it so much, because we've been there twice and I'm hoping to get back again soon.
All right. You ready to get started?
I am. Okay. So we're going to talk about, in no particular order, although some of them are kind of in a particular order, but number 10, backpack in the wilderness. And for all of you that have listened to this podcast long enough, you know that it's not anything that I would ever do. But I know that there's a lot of people that enjoy backcountry camping. So tell us some about that, Ranger Christy, and some of the different opportunities that folks can get out and explore and backcountry camp.
Well, I love that you started with one of my favorite topics. I love backpacking. I did my first backpacking trip ever here in Big Bend with my parents, I think when I was about 12 or so. And one of the unique things about Big Bend is that we do have, when you hike in the Chisos Mountains, we do have designated sites. So you're going into a specific site. We provide a bear box. We have composting toilets up there. It's the version where you don't have to carry as many things. But then we also have much more remote camping or wilderness camping where you can, literally, if you wanted to, get a permit to park on the side of the road and hike into a section of the park without a trail and just go and explore. And so for me, that's something when the winter months come, usually from December to March, that's what I try to do as much as possible. But I emphasize the winter because April through a lot of times October, it's almost too hot to do that.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with water, a lack of water here in the Chihuahuan Desert. So it really does define where you can go at what time of year.
Mm-hmm. And for somebody that said, hey, January sounds good, that's a quiet month for me, what is the weather like down there in Big Bend?
So January, I would say January, February are our coldest months. But when I say cold, we can still have highs in the 50s, maybe 60s. It's pretty rare that we have nights below freezing. So 30s, maybe 40s. And it is hardly ever cloudy here. So even in the middle of the winter when it's gray everywhere else, when you come out here, we typically have beautiful, bright, sunny days.
Oh, nice.
And I assume there's some weather difference up in the Chisos Mountains versus on the what do you call it? On the plainland, the desert. We'll just call it the desert.
The not so mountainy.
Yeah. So interesting fact there. The Chisos Mountains, even though when you're staying in the campground, you're at the highest elevation in the park, in the winter months at night, it is actually the warmest place in the park. And
really?
Yeah, kind of strange. We'll get people who come and they say, I want to stay down on the river at Rio Grande Village because it's got to be warmer. I'm like, actually, that's the coldest place at night in the park.
Wow.
And we think it just has to do with the shape of the Chisos Mountains. They form a bowl, as you know, from driving up there. And think about all of that rock during the day absorbing the heat from the sun. And then at night, it's releasing that heat, back into that bowl or that basin. And so it keeps it pretty toasty.
Oh my gosh, that's fascinating. Well, that explains a lot because, we were there like March, April, the very first time in our little guy travel trailer and with no heat, no AC. And I remember it being very comfortable. I never felt cold and never felt, it definitely got very warm during the days, but at night it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I would highly recommend that campground if you've got a small enough RV to get up there.
And check it because there's switchbacks to get in there.
What is the smallest or what is the largest you can get up there? Do you know that?
Mm-hmm. So the largest recommended length for driving into the Chisos is 24 feet. If you're going to stay in the campground, I would really try to keep it at 20 or less. There are only maybe 2 or 3 sites that could accommodate something as large as 24 feet.
Okay. That makes sense. Yeah, because ours at the time was, 10 feet long?
Well, yeah. But you got to include the length of the vehicle too, right? Because you've got those switchbacks all the way up the mountain to get up to the campground, correct?
So the sign driving up says RVs 24 feet or less, and then a trailer of 20 feet or less. So
Okay.
Gotcha.
depends.
Yeah, because you can bend it. It's got the little hitchy thing. It
Yeah,
bends.
I remember there being some sign as she's saying that hey, if you're over this length, they'll go up there. So definitely do your homework if you're gonna stay there. And we'll talk a little bit more about camping options too in a minute. But I just wanted to bring that out. And I do remember it's absolutely beautiful. I remember the bowl that you're speaking of because we did. We had a really long drive down there. We were kind of at each other.
Oh, we were beyond at each other. We were so tired.
And so we, was it the Windows Trail?
It was the Windows Trail.
That goes off of that. Is it the Windows Trail that goes off of the campground? Yeah, so we took that and we were bickering at each other the whole way on this trail.
It was so beautiful. And I'm like, I don't even care. I don't even care if they look at all these birds. I don't even care about the birds. It was just one of those.
Anyway, it was a beautiful hike and all that, but I remember we redid that the second time we went, and we were happy with each other, and it was a much better hike. But
it's amazing how that works,
But yeah, that's an incredible
marriage.
hike. But anyway, I don't want to cut you.
All right. So number 9, this is really interesting, and I had no idea this existed in the park, and this is Explore the Fossil Discovery Exhibit. And this is about 8 miles north of the Panther Junction. Now, because we didn't get to do this, I pulled it up online, and I see it's like a self-guided kind of interpretive center. But are there walking paths that take you out to other areas to go and explore to see more fossils?
So the exhibit itself showcases fossils.
Okay.
There is a short path that'll lead you up to a high viewpoint, but it doesn't take you out to any actual fossils, but within the rock. But just like Mr. T-Rex here, it's basically 3 rooms that are open air, so you can go anytime as long as it's light enough to see. And we have a skull of a tyrannosaur that was found in the park, skull of a Deinosuchus, which is, imagine a huge alligator that children will put their kids in the mouth of and take pictures of them sitting inside of the mouth of this thing.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool.
And so a lot of folks don't realize that Big Bend National Park has the longest span of fossil history of any national park in the United States. So we have about 130 million years of fossil history. And until the fossil discovery was built, so many people didn't know that. And we didn't have a place to showcase those fossils. So it's a fabulous exhibit. It's a must-see.
That's really cool. I am 100% convinced. We had gone off, one of the many dirt roads that are out there the first time that we were there and found kind of what would you call it? I mean, it was like down in between the rocks.
It was like a canyon, like a little
small miniature,
canyon.
like a slot canyon. And I took a picture of this rock because it literally looked like half of like a dinosaur egg that was encapsulated in that rock. And I took a picture of it and hung on our wall for many, many years. And I'm like, I know that had to be a dinosaur egg that was just like stuck in this rock. I mean, that's what it looked like. It was incredible. It was so neat. Yeah, so that's my dinosaur fossil story.
I remember the story. We tend to like to go into national parks and just turn on these random gravel roads that there's no signs that say do not turn on them.
Right.
So we turn on them. And we took a big loop trail somewhere there in the park, and that's where we ended up finding that. But it was a really cool area. So.
Yeah, it was very cool. Very cool. So number 8, and this is fascinating, is go bird watching. I think it's incredible that the park is home to over 450 different species of birds. And we saw several of those. The second time we did the Windows hike, I paid more attention to all the birds, and they're just everywhere. So what are some of the Randy touched on some of them, kind of like I want to say the more famous birds that bird lovers would go, oh my gosh, I need to go there to see this.
Sure. So being a birder myself, again, another subject that I love here. So you mentioned early on the Kalima warbler. We get birders who will come here in April, May, and June who are solely looking for that bird. It's something that they have to check off their list because this is the only place in the United States where you can find it. Otherwise, you have to go south to Mexico.
Wow.
So they'll come, and they're only found in the Chisos. You have to do a hike that's at least 8 miles round trip with about 2,000 feet of elevation change to get up into Boot Canyon, which is where they nest. But they're a fairly nondescript bird, sort of a brownish gray color. And so a lot of folks have maybe seen them when they're hiking and just have no idea that they've seen this very rare bird.
Cool.
So that's a highlight for sure. And then also in the Chisos, and I'm sure that you guys saw them when you were here, but the Mexican jays, they're a large blue bird, whitish breast, very social. They are very used to people. They squawk a lot. They'll land on branches near your head, probably hoping that you'll feed them, which of course you don't want to do in a national park.
Yeah.
but very distinctive. Everybody comes in and says, I saw a big blue bird. What was it? And I kind of think of him as the mascot of the park when it comes to birds, for sure.
That's cool.
But yes, the other really, well, obviously, we get a lot of birds here because we're on the Central Flyway. But the park itself has an elevation difference of 6,000 feet. So you'll get bird species on the river that you wouldn't see if you went into the Chisos and vice versa. So I always tell folks when they come and they say, where should we go for birds? And I'll say, try to hit up all the different habitats in the park.
Yeah.
And I won't continue. I give a whole program about birds, but I'll spare you that. But yes, if you're wanting to see birds and some that are fairly rare, come in the spring, come to Big Bend.
Oh, that is so cool. That is so cool. I love that. And I don't know anything about birds, but I enjoy birds. And when we had a Sticks and Bricks house, I always fed the birds and enjoyed seeing all the different ones. We had a boxer that her favorite place was laying under the tree where the bird feeder was. And so I'd look out the window to see her surrounded in all these different birds. And we used to live in Kentucky, and we get these gigantic red-headed woodpeckers. They were huge, and they would be out there on the side of the tree, just my dog's just laying there like, yeah, hanging out with the woodpeckers. Just thought it was so cool. So neat.
Absolutely. When I give my bird program at the beginning, I always ask people, do you consider yourself to be a birder? And it's funny how a lot of people, oh, no, not me. And I like to say, if you own a pair of binoculars and you have an interest in birds, you're a birder.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
So
very cool. I love that. Well, number 7, which I'm sure you can see some birds on too, is drive the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive. And this is a 30-mile route that is going to take folks through a good kind of diverse section of the park. Is that correct?
So Ross Maxwell, to me, you're going to see the most diverse geology and vegetation and landscape. It highlights, not only the sedimentary limestone walls of Santa Elena Canyon, but you'll see volcanic features like the mule ears, which are volcanic dikes, basically. And we have a lot of exhibits along the road that'll stop and tell you about what you're looking at. What happened at Goat Mountain? How did that form?
That's fantastic. And I love these, one of the things that the national park system and state park systems do so well is just having scenic drives like this with interpretive signage along the way that people can get out, really make an entire day out of it. Pack a lunch, pack some snacks and water and drinks and go and take the drive and stop at some of these locations. There's always wonderful pull-offs and sometimes picnic tables and just enjoy that time there while you're learning about everything that's around you. I think that's incredible.
Yep.
I know. You're so cute over there with your little yeps.
Well, I was trying to think, did we drive that? I'm not sure. Or is that the main drive?
It's like one of the main drives.
So we would have been on it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not visualizing, what road that was. There's the main drag between like the Welcome Center and all that. I assume that's part of it. Is that correct? The road that goes along the Welcome Center?
Yeah, so from Panther Junction Visitor Center, you can head east to Rio Grande Village or head west, which will lead you to the turnoff to Ross Maxwell.
Okay, so we were on it every single day. Okay, I just didn't know that was. Okay,
that's considered the scenic drive. Yeah,
that's why my mind was going that I don't remember.
You're like, I don't remember that. Okay. Now, are there any? Because a lot of RVers that own motorhomes will flat tow a vehicle behind it, and the best vehicle to flat tow is a Jeep, hands down. So are there any really good like off-road scenic drives that you recommend there in the park for us folks that do have off-road capable vehicles?
We have over 150 miles of dirt roads in the park. And so if you're coming to the park with something like a Jeep, 4x4, high clearance, we have Old Ore Road, which is about 25 miles in length, River Road, which is about 50 miles in length, and then several shorter ones like Old Maverick, which is 13 miles. And the roads, we really encourage people to come in and talk to a ranger when you first get here, because no dirt road here is the same as another. We have a huge variety from easy, I could drive a passenger car down it, to, Black Gap Road, where you want to make sure that you have good tires, off-road tires. A little lift helps in that vehicle, and then a capability to get yourself out of a situation if you get stuck somewhere. You're crawling up some rock ledges in some places.
Cool.
So we have roads for all skill levels for sure, but you definitely want to know ahead of time what you're getting into.
Absolutely.
I would say out of the dirt roads in the park, I really enjoy the Glen Springs River Road loop. And that's probably about a 2.5 hour drive. And you, under normal dry conditions, would be fine with a high clearance vehicle. You don't usually need 4-wheel drive for that road.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and we didn't pay attention to what off roads we were getting on, but I know the last one we were on, we had our Jeep, and we're just plowing through doing probably, 30 miles an hour, I'd say. And we come up to this big dually pickup truck, and this poor guy's crawling along at probably 10 miles an hour because the road was like, all the little with like rivets. I don't even know what to call them. Just like all the bumps in the line. Right. And our Jeep is just like chewing them up. And you could see this dually's like just getting beat. Getting beat up so bad. I'm like, maybe not a good choice of vehicle for off-roading back here.
I do have a question. I think this is the appropriate time to ask this question. So this didn't happen the first time we were there, but it happened the second time we were there. So the second time we were there, the road to the Chisos Mountain was closed off because I guess there's so many people that are going up and doing all the hikes up there that it's getting too many people up there, and so they're having to do almost time slots to get up there, which that wasn't the case in 16 or whatever that year was we went the first time. We had no problem going up to the Chisos Mountains. Do you care to comment on that a little bit? Sure.
And actually, this is a good point to also talk about the fact that the road to the Chisos Basin is going to be closing in May of next year due to a big construction project. It's very exciting. A lot of us have been waiting impatiently. It was supposed to start around COVID, which obviously that delayed things quite a bit. But yes, so for the near future, let's say, for example, that you come in March, which is spring break, which is our busiest month of the year. Once we run out of parking in the Chisos Basin, they close the road, which is what you guys saw kind of down at the base. And then it's a matter of when a car comes down, then a car can go up. And we just do traffic control there throughout the day, just to make sure that people aren't driving up there and then just driving in circles around and around. Yeah. We like to say, go somewhere else and then come back later.
Right.
Exactly.
Right, which is, I think, what we did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, don't wait in that line. You don't want to do that. But going back to what I briefly mentioned, so starting in May of 2025, the entire Chisos Basin will be closed. So the campground, the lodge, the hiking trails, all of that, because the lodge, the main building, which is the check-in, the restaurant, the bar, that area is going to be completely torn down and then rebuilt from scratch.
Wow.
It's going to be fabulous. It's supposed to be a 2-story structure. They're putting the restaurant up on top with a huge outdoor patio eating area that'll have a great view through the window. The lodge rooms will be getting remodeled. They're also going to be completely repairing the water line system that's up in the Chisos, because the pipes and the water line system were installed in the 1950s, and it's time for it to happen.
Yeah.
So they're doing all of these things together at one time. And so currently we're anticipating that area will be closed for 2 years for all of it.
Oh, wow. That's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because a lot of the most wildly popular hikes are off of
Chisos.
the Chisos Mountains.
Mm-hmm.
So that's going to definitely change what a trip to
the so if you're listening to this, I don't know when we're releasing this podcast, but
it's going to be in March.
Okay, so you need to hurry.
Yeah, exactly.
You need to hurry. You need to get to Big Bend, which leads us perfectly into number 6, which is visit the Chisos Basin. So with things closing down around the Chisos Basin, because taking the Chisos Road up there, will there be any other areas in the park that folks can still experience the Chisos Basin in any way?
Well, so there are several trails that lead from the desert up into the Chisos. But I really want to caution folks that the shortest route in which to do that is going to be at a minimum about a 13-mile round trip hike.
Oh, wow.
Ooh, yeah.
With about a 2,000-foot elevation change. So it's something, it will be accessible. You can do it, but we just want folks to really consider what you're getting into.
Right.
And at the very least, you start the hike, and at some point, if you decide, nope, we're done, hey, you just turn around and go back down again.
Exactly.
So you'll be able to access what we call the high Chisos trails, which is the South Rim, Emory Peak. Those are some of the more popular hikes. But once up there, you will not be able to hike down into the basin itself. You'll just be up in that high Chisos area. So in and out, kind of the same way.
Yeah, and the Chisos Basin, it's beautiful. That's where Randy and I stayed. The first time we went, we stayed at the campground there. The Windows hike, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, is accessed off down in that area in the Chisos Basin where the campground is. And this is where the funny story is, how we ended up in a big motorhome. When we first went to Big Bend, we had this little travel tray. I'm a tiny little. It's basically a queen size mattress on wheels. So no bathroom, no nothing. And middle of the night, what happens? I have to go tinkle. So I'm getting dressed. I open the door. I take my flashlight, and I see all of these warning signs. Warning, mountain lions in the area. Warning, mountain lions like to hang out in tall grass. Warning. I walk up to the bathroom house, and the women's bathroom is on the back side. And at that time, there was probably 4 foot, 5 foot tall grass surrounding the back of this bathroom. And I'm like, I'm going to die. There's a mountain lion just sitting there waiting for me at 2:00 in the morning because I have to pee. And I literally got back to the trailer.
She woke me up and said, we're buying a new RV.
I was like, never again. I want my own toilet.
So because of Big Bend, we now have a 45-foot bus that we drive around in.
There you go.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I'll have you know that your fears are not unfounded, because we have had people occasionally in the middle of the night going to the bathroom see a mountain lion in that campground.
See, Randy, this is so now I don't have to leave the comforts of my motorhome anymore to go tinkle in the middle of the night.
I won't I seriously was making fun of her many times over that.
I feel better. Thank you so much, Ranger Christy.
Because I've always heard that if that you're never going to see a mountain lion. If he wants to attack you, you're going to be on the ground. You probably
see the glow of his eyeballs as he's getting ready to munch on my leg.
Right.
I'm like, I just want to pee. Oh my gosh. When it's time to put your jacks down on your RV, you want to make sure you have a strong, flat surface to support your rig. Ox blocks are the strongest trailer jack blocks on the market. Made with 100% recycled plastic, Ox blocks offer trailer jack blocks to fit a variety of jacks for RVs, horse trailers, boat trailers, utility trailers, and more. Whether you have post jacks, stabilizer jacks, wheel jacks, scissor jacks, or pad jacks, Ox blocks provides a stackable, versatile, and sturdy solution. Offering a lifetime warranty and made in the USA, Ox blocks are your trailer jack solution.
Visit myoxblocks.com and use code RVD to save 10% on your purchase of Ox Blocks Trailer Jack blocks.
Okay, so number 5 is explore the window trail, and this is accessed in the Chisos Basin. So is this going to be another one of the trails that are going to be temporarily inaccessible?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so if you have the opportunity to see this trail, to do this trail before, things kind of shut down for a couple years until the park makes things even better, the window trail was one that we thoroughly enjoyed the second time. The first time, like we said, we were a little bitter and angry with one another. It was just not a good day for us.
It was still a beautiful
hike. But the second time, we're like, wow, this is so much more enjoyable when we're not so angry with each other. And I do remember the Mexican jays and seeing those everywhere because I kept saying, oh my gosh, look at all these beautiful blue birds. They're everywhere. And they're noisy and cheerful and kind of follow you around. And it was very cool. Yeah.
There was also another hike in Ranger Christy. You might be able to help me remember what this is, but right when you come to the top of the road where you snake through the whole climbing up into the Chisos Mountain, right at the very top, or maybe towards the top, it may not have been the exact top, right on the left, there's only like 4 or 5 parking spots. And then there's a trail that goes up there and goes straight up and gets these magnificent views of the
mountain views are incredible.
Do you remember what that hike was? Because I cannot for the life of me remember that hike.
Yes, absolutely. That's the Lost Mine Trail. And it is probably the most popular hike in the park. It's about 5 miles round trip. And like you said, climbs up to some spectacular views looking out to the east. Unfortunately, that one will also not be accessible.
Okay. Well, you've got till what you said, May? May is when they're going to close
May
it down?
1st.
May 1st,
or wait till 2027. But that was, we did that back in whatever the year it was, 2016 or whatever we decided that was. 13. And I remember it being beautiful, and then we never did it. Well, we tried to do it again when we came back.
But the lot was full.
But the lot was full. We could never get back into that lot. So, but all right, well, moving on, baby.
Moving on. Okay, so we did do number 4, which was one of the most incredible experiences we've ever done in a national park. And this is, we crossed the border and we went into Boquillas, Mexico. So we had our passports with us. We read up on this. So if, everybody who's listening or watching, if this is something you want to do, and we highly recommend, bring your passport. This was such an amazing experience.
Now have you done this, Ranger Christy?
Yeah, several times. I think it's one of those, if you're here and it's a day that it's open, so just be aware that in the winter it's closed on Mondays and Tuesdays, and then in the summer it's closed Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So just so you're not disappointed. But yes, it's a fabulous experience. It's so neat because Boquillas is a tiny little town, and in some ways a lot like Big Bend, in that it's hard to get there from Mexico, from further south. It's all dirt roads that lead there. So I will say we get this question a lot. You cannot drive into Boquillas, just a heads up. You're either walking or taking the rowboat, but it's fabulous.
Yeah, we did. So we took the little, I loved it, the quote unquote international ferry, which is just a little rowboat, that is painted international ferry in like shin deep water across. We got to the other side and the gentleman said, do you want a walk, a donkey, or a pickup truck? And I'm like, well, a donkey. Yeah, I mean, that's always going to be my choice. So he saddled up 2 donkeys and we hopped on it, and he walked us about a mile up into the village. We had an amazing lunch at one of the restaurants there. I grabbed some great little treats from the kids that were selling some of the treats in front of their homes, and then went to another home. And so each of the houses there, for just let people know that the people that live there in the village will make goods and then sell them right in front of their homes so that you can buy them and help support their community. And so, we stopped and bought some things and bought a bracelet that was braided by one of the local kids. And it's just a wonderful, wonderful experience, to be that close to Mexico. And then coming back was so much fun too, because, you get back, you have your passport, and there at the border crossing, they're like, just go over and pick up the phone when it rings. I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, just go over and pick up the phone when it rings. Okay, the phone rings. They're like, look up. And I'm like, okay. And I'm holding the phone, looking up. They're like, hold up your passport. Hold up the, okay, you're good. I'm like, okay. It was so fun.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to bring out is you know, your money that you're bringing into Boquillas is how they survive. There's really nothing there. As Ranger Christy said, I think what they say is 200 to 300 miles from their closest
from their closest town to get anything.
And you got to cross over a mountain range and all that.
Right. So a lot of their supplies come from the American side. So a lot of the border agents there working will get supplies and food and drink and bring it over into Boquillas. Or
even let them cross into America, get it, and then go back. I think I saw a gentleman doing that. So we just had this really opened your eyes up, but we had an experience where you get assigned to a tour guide, and that tour guide takes you around, as Caly said, but then our specific tour guide ended at his home with his daughter, and we bought a couple things, and I gave him an extra $20, and not thinking anything of it, just like, here you go. We live a very blessed life, and I wanted to bless them, and I turned around and started to walk away, and then I looked back, and the young girl, she probably, what do you think, 12, 13, 15,
12,
maybe tops.
There.
But she was praying to God, saying, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so it was just such an emotional moment for us, and we take so much for granted here in the U.S. that it just was a special moment for us.
And I just think, again, recommend to anybody that is able to do this, to do it, because it is such an incredible and special experience that you can experience right in the United States, cross into Mexico, have, a wonderful several hours, and then come back, and you're right there in the national park again.
Eat at one of the two Mexican restaurants. Have you ate at both restaurants there, Christy?
Yes, we always make it a point when we go to eat at one and then go and have a margarita at the other. So
yeah.
Go to both.
Yeah, yes. I don't remember the names, but we ate and drank at the same one, and it was really good.
And then I got a bag of sopapillas on the way out of town, which were just, delicious. I mean, just delicious. You can tell they were like freshly made from somebody's house, and it was just, they were incredible.
Yeah, so definitely do that if you've got your passport with you and have the time. So moving on to number 3.
Yes. Number 3 is raft or canoe the Rio Grande. So, there's got to be a ton of opportunities, something we've never done. But what are some of the opportunities there in the park that folks can do if they want to get on the water?
Mm-hmm. So there's several ways that you can do this. One, you can bring your own craft. So say your own kayaks and paddles and life jackets, and pick up a permit at the visitor center. You just specify, which part of the river you're going to be on. Or if you don't have that gear or want to bring it all with you, there are several outfitters just outside of the park to the west in Terlingua that will either rent gear or do guided trips in the park.
Okay.
One thing especially right now, just kind of a caution, the river is very, very low right now. And so we get folks, who've read about this, they've heard about it, and they come here and they're like, oh, we've, got our canoes and we want to get on the river. But with the river levels being what they are, you'll end up walking quite a bit in some. So we jokingly call them canoe assisted hikes. So just be aware that depending on, whether we've had rain, what the river levels are like, it may or may not be just an easy float trip. you might be getting down and doing some walking.
Yeah, we actually walked up through Santa Elena Canyon pretty far.
Yeah.
And it was ankle deep.
Yeah, I've changed number 1 to that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so don't speak of that.
Don't speak.
Okay. Strange. Well, you got to tell me when you change things. But
I know. I'm
anyway,
sorry. Yeah.
But it was ankle deep, and we got pretty far into the canyon, and we were just taking pictures. Though we didn't have a canoe or a kayak or anything like that. But fun.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what to say now.
Okay. No, what I think is incredible, with the name Rio Grande, which is large river, literally, that it is so shallow in areas. And one of the areas we're going to talk about now is the hot springs. And the first time that we went there, Randy was getting some pictures and he's standing in the middle of the river and it's literally like barely hit like below his shins. And I'm like, this is, and I guess in my head, growing up, you hear about the Rio Grande and how grand it is and how big it is. And so I was expecting this big raging river. And then you get out there and it's this like little trickling river in certain areas. And so it was just it was neat and interesting. But then the hot springs are so cool. Like it's just so random. And I read some history on it. So there was a guy, he was a Mississippian that had malaria as a child. And just kind of never recovered from it. He heard about these quote unquote healing waters in this area, went there, basically homesteaded on the land, and built this thermal spring resort and drank the water and sat in the water and recovered and got better. So I thought that was fascinating.
Is it still pretty popular to go to the springs?
Oh, very much so. Yeah, absolutely. When you were describing your second experience there, you said you and about 200 other people.
Yes.
It is pretty crowded there. Usually if you can go really early in the morning, sometimes maybe, later in the evening, it's not quite as busy, but it's a very popular spot. And the nice thing is that no matter what the river levels are, though, at least as far as we know, water has always come out of the hot springs. And so that rock foundation that you sit in or sit on, that always has water, which is good.
Yeah. So what is left from what this gentleman built all those years ago? I think it was early 1900s is when it was started. So what buildings or foundations are left in that area?
Quite a bit, actually. When you pull into the parking lot, almost immediately to the right, you'll see what's left of Livingston House. So it was a house built by a different gentleman, not J.O. Langford. And then as you start the hike to the hot springs, you'll pass the post office and store, which is the outside is fully intact still. You can peer inside and see some of the paintings on the walls. And then continuing down, you'll pass what were the motor court or the little motel units. You can look inside of those. When kids do the Junior Ranger book here, one of the activities is to go to the hot springs. And my favorite question in the book is, would you like to live here today? And almost everyone says, no way. Stone building. But yeah, it's still mostly intact. And then a little bit before the hot springs, if you look up on the walls of the canyon, you can see Native American pictographs and petroglyphs that date back several thousand years. So there's a lot in the way of history on that short little half-mile hike.
I don't think we ever saw the pictographs.
I don't know if we did. I don't know if we ever paid attention to that.
Yeah.
Because I think,
I don't know that we knew they were there.
No, because I know the first time that we went, again, it was super quiet. It was Randy and I and one random guy all by himself. But, it was one of those, I had heard about these. I heard about the springs. We had done some research, and we were going to do these hot springs. Randy knows if there's a hot spring in the area, I'm going to find it. And so we went out there and just, kind of learned about the history after the fact. And then the second time we were like, yeah, let's do this again. And then got turned away one day because of no parking, came back, got in the second time, and then got back there. I'm like, whoa, this is totally different than what I remember. Because,
so
just
many
people everywhere.
People in the river, people in the hot springs.
Yeah.
I think we just grabbed a little corner in the hot springs.
Yeah, I was like, I'm just going to slide in here. Just, I'm going to say I did this. And yeah, drastically different.
So what do you said spring break was kind of the height of the season. When do you say an off season? I mean, would you say the winter time or would you say the summer is more off season?
Definitely the summer. So winter is our busy time of the year because the temperatures are so much nicer. So usually from the beginning of November through the end of April is the busiest time of year here.
Wow.
But having said that, if you can come in the winter but avoid the holidays, it's still not really that busy. So avoid Thanksgiving, Christmas, spring break, and it's still pretty quiet out here. But definitely summer when the temperatures start to soar, when it hits 110 degrees, 115 degrees on the river,
Yeah.
our visitation goes way down.
I would imagine.
Yeah,
Let's sit in 105-degree water and it's 110 outside. That sounds great.
Right.
So
Your
funny
soles,
when
your,
people still want to do that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, I would.
that's when your soles of your shoes starts melting to the
Yeah.
asphalt.
Oh, my
That's
gosh.
ridiculous. But all right, we there?
We are there, so
All right.
hang tight with us, Ranger Christy. We do something fun here.
And the number one thing to do in Big Bend National Park is
250 strands of light. Drum roll, please.
Well, we are going to do the hike through the Santa Elena Canyon.
okay.
Yeah, that's what I changed it to because that was just such an epic experience. It really was. It's just, I don't know, like walking again in very shallow water, being that close to Mexico, and walking through the canyon and going, that side's Mexico, this side's the United States, and it's this very just interesting definitive line of just like it was just an incredible experience. And then getting to see the Rio Grande from that perspective, there we had some snacks with us. We sat on some boulders and just looked down the canyon and enjoyed a snack. It was
You're talking about
great.
the hike that we went, not when we went in the water, but when we went up
Yeah,
on
up
top.
along the ridge.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, you had me confused. It's like sometimes the water's high and you can't walk through the water.
No, but you start down by the water and then you walk up.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm with you now.
Okay.
We're on the same page.
We're
I'm
on the
like,
same hike.
what
Are you
what
with
is
me
the-
now?
Is the name of that hike literally Santa Elena Canyon hike? Okay.
Mhm. It is. It is.
All right. What do you know about that hike? What can you tell our listeners about it?
Yeah, so I agree. It's a fabulous hike, and especially like you mentioned in low water, when you can get to the end of the trail and just get right in the river itself and walk up it. I mean, in theory, you could walk up that river for about 3 or 4 miles before you would hit what we call rapids along the Rio Grande. And so everybody who hits the end of the trail, if it's low enough, they'll get in, just start walking up it. And even if you take a photo up the canyon and people are in your photo, it enhances it, I think, because the walls are 1,500 feet high.
Yep.
And to
Yes.
see these tiny, tiny people walking in the water beneath the towering walls, it's really fabulous. Yeah.
It really is. It's just, and that's why I put it for me personally number one, because the both times we've been to the park, we've done it both times, and both times I'm still in awe. I'm just amazed at how high the canyon walls are, just how beautiful it is, how much cooler it is through the canyon. Because I remember like the first time we did it, where we parked, I'm like, oh my gosh, we're gonna like scorch. We're just gonna roast to death and die. But then you get into the canyon and you're like, oh, this is kind of nice.
And we've heard from some people that actually have kayaked through the canyon when I guess the water levels were high enough. They said it's an amazing. I guess the company will pick you up and take you outside of the park, and then you kind of drift down through the park or something like that. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll start over in the town of Lajitas, a teeny tiny little resort town, put in on the river there. And the first half of the trip, it's fairly open. You're passing cliffs and bluffs, and then about halfway through, you'll hit the start of Santa Elena. So the last 8 miles, you're entirely within that canyon. And under normal water levels, most trips would do that as 2 days, 1 night.
Okay.
If we've had really good rainfall, they've released water through the dams and the river is really high, which I have seen once in the 5 years I've been here, you'll just zip through in less than a day. It's crazy the difference.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. So Randy usually asks this question, but I'm going to ask it.
Well, you got to. I know where you're going with this.
Okay.
So we have put every ranger we've had on the show on the spot with this question, and we're going to do it to you because it's only fair.
It's only fair. It's only fair.
So do you want to go ahead and ask him?
I am. Okay, so Ranger Christy, it is your last day at Big Bend National Park, and you get to choose one final thing to do in the park.
You're never going to come visit the park again.
You never get to come and see it again.
This is it.
What is going to be your one thing that you are going to do in the park?
Oh, that's a tough question.
Yeah.
We asked the same thing to the Yellowstone guy, and he really had a rough time.
He did.
He's
But
like, I'm going to go fishing.
He's like, I'm gonna go fishing, and we're like, where? He's like, I'm not gonna say because I don't want people to show up.
Exactly.
Exactly. I know. It for me that's really tough because there's one of my favorite things about Big Bend is that there is so much to explore that's not on a trail, that's not on a dirt road, that, there's just places, those of us who have worked here for a while, we know, you drive up the road 6 miles, pull over on the side and hike out to this certain feature. There's just tons of things like that here. But I would say if it were one thing that would be easy to describe to folks, it would be a hike to the South Rim. And it's not a hike that everybody can do. I'll state that right off the bat here. But it's a 12-mile round trip hike. You're going to climb into the Chisos about 2,000 feet in elevation. But when you're standing up on the South Rim and looking down, you're looking south and east down over the desert. You can see quite a ways into Mexico. And on really clear days, you can see hundreds and hundreds of miles here.
Wow.
And for me, I think that is probably a place that is Big Bend more than anything else, because you're in the mountains, but you see the desert and you can see the river canyons, and it's all there in one view.
Wow.
So it's
that's good.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I should tell the listeners here too. Also, this is Caly and I's top 10. This is not the national parks. This is not Ranger Christie's. We developed the top 10. These are things that we recommend. So with that said, is there anything that we missed that you would recommend to our listeners? Any hidden gems that you think are worth mentioning that we don't want to turn them into not hidden gems?
Right.
But if you got a couple places you want to recommend, we would love to hear it.
Sure. So one of the things that we'll tell folks quite a bit when you can't get into the Chisos, when the parking's full and that line is happening, and I mean this in all sincerity, one of my favorite things to send people to is Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive, which you mentioned earlier, but just to highlight a little more the variety of hikes that are along that road. So you have easy half-mile walks. You can do a 14-mile round trip hike out to the Chimneys. You can walk out to volcanic features like the Mule Ears, or you can do a short half-mile walk to the remains of an early pioneer's house here in Big Bend.
Cool.
And I think that if you had to go one place to spend a day, it would be to do Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive, and hit as many of the hikes on that road as you can, and just enjoy the variety of hikes.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Now, I want to talk a little bit about, we're almost done here, and I just want to talk a little bit about campgrounds. So I thought there were 2 campgrounds, but it looks like there's actually 3 campgrounds. Is that correct? You got the Chisos Basin, which is the one that we've talked about, we've stayed at.
Which is, keep in mind, folks, as of May 1st, 2025, will be shutting down for probably about 2 years.
But that's going to reopen. That campground will still be there when you reopen, I assume?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Just with enhancements?
They are going to be doing some work on the campground. Unfortunately, they won't be making the parking spaces any bigger, but they will be doing some improvements to the sites, possibly some more shade structures, that type of stuff.
Nice.
Okay. And then we also had the Rio Grande Village RV campground, which has full hookups. Because if I remember right, the Chisos Mountain didn't have full hookups, right? No hookups?
I don't think it had.
Or do they have electric up there?
So
what do they have up there?
I do want to clarify the Park Service campgrounds. So the 3 Park Service campgrounds in the park, none of those have hookups. But at Rio Grande Village, there is an RV little park there, and it's run by the concessionaire Aramark. So the same company that runs the lodge in the Chisos Basin runs that RV park.
Okay.
So it's inside the park. It's just not ran by the National Park Service. Okay. Because I think this is where we used to shower.
Went. Yeah, that's where we would have to go every day to shower.
It was like 20 miles each way to go shower.
Yeah.
We're like, we're packing a lunch. We're going to shower.
But also what we found out, now it's might have changed because this goes back to 2013, we had great cell phone service there too. And so we'd go down there, and when we'd take our shower, we would
catch up on
emails, call people and all that, because the cell phone, I assume cell phone signal is really rough through most of the park there, right?
It is, yeah. You're only going to get it in a few places, but we do now have Wi-Fi at all of the visitor centers, and then, like you mentioned, at the store where the showers are. So.
Oh, okay.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. And then the other campground is the Cottonwoods Campground. I assume that's inside the park as well.
That's going to be over on the west side, about 8 miles from Santa Elena Canyon.
Okay.
And that campground is the smallest, so it has 28 sites. So it's quieter, a little more out there.
Yep.
And
And
then
there is in Lajita, they do have Maverick Ranch, which is a real nice RV park.
Yeah.
We've stayed there for an extended time, 2 or 3
I think
weeks.
we were there for two and a half weeks.
That's a nice park, but that's still what is that, like 20? That's closer to the state park, so that's about what is it, 40-minute drive to the park from there, probably.
It's probably
30?
about an hour drive from Panther Junction.
Okay,
Okay,
so that's a little bit further.
Yeah. And then, so what is the largest size rig that the national park, or even the park down at Rio Grande Village, what is the largest size RV that that park can accommodate?
So I'm not entirely sure for the RV park. My guess for theirs would be about 45 feet. I know that for us, 40 feet is by far the largest, and there aren't very many sites that will accommodate something that large. So I would really want to, I'd be safe to say 35 and less.
Yes.
Yeah, I
for
remember
sure.
seeing big rigs in the Rio Grande Village
Okay.
campground. Wait, is that the right one?
Yeah.
No, it's the Rio Grande Village. Yeah, campground had full hookups. There was full size 45 footers there.
Okay.
I remember that because that's where we would have to go now. You're definitely not getting anything that large anywhere near the Chisos Mountains.
No, not at all. Nope. You would just you'd have to park in the middle of the road.
All right, Ranger Christy. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
thank
We appreciate
you.
your time, and we thank you for carving out a little bit of time for us, and we appreciate it. You want to take us out?
Yeah, thank you so much, Ranger Christy, for joining us today and talking about some of the top things that we recommend doing in Big Bend National Park and some of the things that you recommend doing there. It's an incredible park. Folks, get out there, experience it. It's a beautiful, beautiful gem in southern Texas. But we want to thank you all out there for joining us in here. Please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the RV Destinations podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. And we are now out on YouTube, so be sure to get out there, find our channel, and hit that subscribe button so you are always getting up-to-date content on whatever we're releasing. So we just want to thank you all so much. And don't forget, get out to our website. If you use the code podcast20, podcast20 at checkout, you're going to save 20% off any of our subscriptions. So we just want to say Merry Christmas, even though this is coming out after Christmas, but that's okay because you can never have enough Christmas spirit. So Merry Christmas, and take care, everybody.
Be safe.
Safe travels, y'all.